I thought I was planning the perfect day for Jessica. Movie, lunch, jewelry fitting, family dinner. Until she canceled, claiming her aunt died. You'll never guess what I saw next. My name is Mark. I'm 42 years old. This was a while ago, but I just felt a little more comfortable sharing it now. I remember that morning like it was yesterday. The sun had barely crept over the horizon when I woke up, heart pounding, hands trembling with excitement. You know the feeling, when you've been planning something special for so long that it becomes more real than reality itself. That was me. I'd been saving up for weeks, cutting back on my morning coffee, skipping late-night snacks, even turning down invitations from friends. Also, I could surprise Jessica with the perfect day. First, I'd pick her up in my little sedan, wheels glinting in the morning light, driving us to the theater for the latest blockbuster. Then, we'd stroll across town for lunch at that fancy rooftop restaurant she'd mentioned once, the one with the panoramic city views. After that, a jewelry fitting. I'd arranged for sterling silver lock chains, his and hers charms that symbolized our bond. Finally, we'd end the day at my parents' house, where I'd introduce her to everyone and make her feel like part of the family. This wasn't just a date. It was a promise of forever. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled of last night's coffee. I poured myself a cup, black, no sugar, and sat at the table, staring at my phone. It was almost 10:30. Jessica would text soon. On my way, can't wait, that sort of thing. My thumb hovered over the messages screen. I rehearsed my greeting. Ready for our adventure? I typed it in my mind over and over. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. I picked it up, heart pounding. Her name lit the screen. Hey, Mark. I'm so sorry. Aunt Evelyn passed away this morning. I have to be with my family. I stared at the words. Aunt Evelyn. Of course, Aunt Evelyn. Her favorite aunt, the one who'd taken her on childhood vacations. My stomach clenched. Disappointment cut in sharp, but I blinked it away. That was bad timing, not betrayal. I typed, I'm so sorry to hear. Take all the time you need. I'm here for you. I hit send before second-guessing myself. Then I slipped my phone into my pocket, folded my hands around the warm mug, and tried to picture her tears, her family leaning in close. My mind conjured images, a funeral parlor draped in black, low voices murmuring, head bowed in sorrow. This was real. I told myself that. But I'd already planned this day. I'd reserved 2 tickets for the early Iron Man re-release. Afterwards, a rooftop lunch overlooking the city skyline. Then the jeweler, sterling silver lock chains with our initials engraved, mine on hers, hers on mine. Finally, dinner at my parents', her introduction to the family, as I jokingly called it. By the end, I'd slip the chain onto her neck, and I'd see her eyes fill with surprise and gratitude. It felt like destiny. I drained my coffee, grabbed my car keys, and stepped into the morning chill. My little sedan warmed up quickly, and I drove to the cinema. The marquee's bold letters glowed. Iron Man 1, 10:45 a.m. Perfect timing. I parked, took a deep breath, and headed inside. The lobby was buzzing. Families, couples, popcorn in hand. I paid for my solo ticket and a large popcorn. My heart thumped at the thought of sharing it with Jessica. I pictured her laughing at the jokes, leaning in when the hero soared across the screen. Then I stopped. At the ticket counter, I caught a flash of movement, a hand brushing against a waist. A laugh. I turned, and there she was. Jessica, in that same crop top she wore on our first date. Midriff bare, leather jacket slung over one shoulder, giggling like a schoolgirl. Wrapped around a tall, broad-shouldered man. His arms slid around her back, pulling her close. They whispered to each other, faces inches apart. She tilted her head, her lips brushing his cheek. He laughed, a deep baritone that filled the space. My chest tightened, breath hitched. My mind spun through possibilities. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe Aunt Evelyn's funeral was next door, and this was her uncle, or a cousin I didn't know about. But then I saw them kiss. A quick peck at first, then a longer one. Their bodies swayed in rhythm, oblivious to anyone around them. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. My vision tunneled. For a moment, I thought I'd become the Hulk, green rage boiling beneath my skin. But if I actually looked into a mirror, I probably looked like a rabbit caught in headlights, mouth slightly open, eyes wide. I wanted to storm forward, shout her name, demand explanations, rip her mask off, and uncover the lies she told. But another voice, quieter and calmer, whispered, "Drama only makes you look weak." So I took a step back. Then another. I felt every eye in the lobby flick to my retreating figure. I told myself I'd stay cool. I rounded a corner, slowed my breathing, and my mind raced. Jessica had lied about her aunt. She called for a funeral that didn't exist. She ditched our plans to be with him. Cheated. I could feel betrayal deep in my bones. He stood there, hand still on her hip. She looked at me over her shoulder, mouth parted, eyes darting between me and him. For a heartbeat, we formed a silent triangle of shock, hurt, and guilt. I recognized the size of the man, solid, strong. Probably played sports. If I confronted him, it could end badly for me. Besides, exposing her now would only make me look foolish. So I made a decision. I'd treat her betrayal with indifference. "Hey," I said, smiling. Jessica's face drained of color. Her eyes went wide, panic tangoing across her features. She stuttered for a moment, then his gaze flicked to me. Me, smiling, "Long time no see, Jess." Jessica, voice shaking, "What are you?" Me, to her date, "Nice to meet you. I'm an old friend." He offered his hand. Strong, warm, a handshake that sealed an unexpected truce. I said, "Good to see you both," and turned away. My heart pounded in my ears. I could feel Jessica's eyes burning holes in my back. I swallowed down a snarl, forced my legs to move. But as I took a few steps, a voice echoed, "You are such a wussy. So you just gonna let her walk all over you like that?" That voice wasn't hers. It was mine, but somehow sharper. I spun around, taking a deep breath, walking back. "Hey, you a fan of video games?" His surprise flickered, then a smile. "Yeah, big time." Me, "Wanna swap numbers? Maybe we can link up for FIFA sometime." He nodded, pulled out his phone, and we exchanged digits. I left them standing there. Her jaw dropped, his brow raised, and I didn't bother with the movie. I drove home in silence, heart in 1,000 pieces, mind already calculating what came next. As I replayed every detail in my head, the look on Jessica's face, the shock in his eyes, I realized this wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the start of something else, my chance to take control, to turn her betrayal back onto her, piece by piece. When I arrived home, my hands shook. I paced the living room, replaying our conversations, our inside jokes, her favorite songs. I thought about how she could lie, how she could betray someone who loved her enough to plan a day like that. And in that moment, I vowed, I'm not going to stoop to her level. I'm going to be smarter, cooler, more calculated. Soon, I would hear from Mike. And that's when the real story would begin. It didn't take a while, a few texts here and there, and the next day, he showed up at my door with a FIFA disc and 2 controller grips. He was calm, friendly, nothing like the secret lover I'd imagined. His real name was Michael, but he insisted I call him Mike. We set up the game on my living room TV. As the kickoff whistle sounded, something unexpected happened. I laughed. For the first time since seeing Jessica with him, I laughed. We traded banter between goals and defeats. He told me about his job in IT, his love for retro games, the story behind the Spider-Man tattoo on his forearm. I shared my own background, a project manager with a knack for creative side hustles, a man who once planned the perfect date that went spectacularly wrong. Over pizza and late-night replays, I probed gently. "So, how long have you two been together?" Mike shifted on the couch. "About 3 months. We met at a friend's party. Jessica said you two were old college buddies." My throat tightened. Jessica had lied to him just as she lied to me. But we kept playing. With every match won or lost, our friendship deepened. I didn't mention her again that night. The next morning, Mike texted, "Thanks for last night. That was fun. You free this weekend?" I realized he didn't know I was her ex. He assumed we were friends who'd drifted apart, and he believed Jessica had spoken well of me. That clicked something into place. Here was my leverage, but more importantly, here was an innocent person tangled in her deceit. I invited him over again. This time, I set out coffee and donuts on my kitchen island. We chatted about childhood memories. He grew up 2 hours away from me, in a quieter town. Meanwhile, every anecdote reminded me of Jessica's half-truths. She'd painted me as flaky or distant, so Mike had no reason to question her. I said, "Mike, can I ask you something? What did Jessica tell you about me?" He smiled. "She said you were a good guy, just busy with work. That you two lost touch, but she always spoke highly of you." I nodded, sipping my coffee. Inside, I felt a twinge of guilt. Here was a decent man, trusting the woman who'd betrayed me. But guilt was a luxury now. I needed to see this through. Over the next week, Mike and I played more FIFA matches. I introduced him to my family at dinner. My parents loved him, easygoing, polite, genuine. They spoke warmly of me and my childhood friend. Jessica had never met them, so his impression of me was based solely on my family treating him like one of their own. Meanwhile, Jessica kept texting Mike, "Are you coming tonight? See you at 8. Every text carried an edge of desperation. She needed him near in case I said something. And she'd heard by now that we were hanging out often. One evening, Mike admitted, "Jess seems tense when I'm at your place. She asks questions, why we play so much, what we talk about. She's worried I'm talking about her." A sly grin crept across my face. I leaned forward. "Maybe she's hiding something." Mike looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" I shrugged. "Just a thought." That weekend, I invited Mike and Sandra together. Sandra was one of Jessica's closest friends. Warm, outspoken, the type who laughed easily and offered advice. She didn't know Mike. I texted both at once. "Game night at my place. Domino's, pizza, FIFA. You two should come." They arrived separately, expecting a casual get-together. Mike greeted Sandra like an old friend, no tension. They teamed up for Domino's, chatting and laughing. I watched them breeze through rounds, complimenting each other's moves. As pizza boxes emptied and the evening darkened, I suggested a friendly FIFA doubles match, Mike and Sandra versus me and a friend I'd invited. Standing side by side, their shoulders brushed. They exchanged cheeky smiles after a goal. There was a spark, something gentle and genuine, so different from the stolen kisses in that cinema lobby. By the end of the night, Sandra raved, "Mike, you're hilarious. We should do this more often." Mike chuckled, glancing at me. Yeah, this was awesome. I excused myself to the kitchen, letting them linger in the living room. Through the doorway, I overheard Sandra. "Mark's place is fun, but we should come back here. Just us." Over the next days, Mike and Sandra fell into a routine. They texted each other, met for coffee, explored the city together. Their friendship blossomed into something deeper, something Jessica could neither control nor approve. Meanwhile, Jessica's messages to Mike multiplied. "Why aren't you answering? I saw you liked her pic. What's going on?" Each time she reached out, he replied gently, "Sandra and I are just friends. I'll call you later." He never mentioned my role in their meetings. He believed this connection was natural, organic, a byproduct of hanging out at my house. He had no idea I'd engineered their first meeting. Jessica's confusion grew. She cornered him at work. "Are you seeing someone else?" Mike, surprised, answered, "No. Sandra's just a friend." Her jealousy exploded. She accused him of plotting to break them up, convinced he was hiding my manipulations. Mike, exasperated, reassured her. "Honestly, Jess, something's changed between us. I care about Sandra in a way I can't ignore." He ended things with Jessica that very night. When Jessica called me in tears, begging for an explanation, I stayed silent. I let her ramble, let her panic. And then, softly, I said, "Maybe it's time to accept what you created." She didn't understand. All she knew was that her boyfriend dumped her for her friend, and everything felt like a cruel plot. She blamed me. She called me names. Yet, I never defended myself. I let her unravel. By the end, Mike and Sandra were inseparable. They moved in together, planning a future, oblivious to the strings I'd pulled. Jessica, consumed by paranoia, watched every social update, every photo, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And me? I sat back, arms crossed, satisfaction settling deep in my chest. My heartbreak had become their happiness, and hers had become heartbreak. I want you to imagine this. It's a warm Saturday evening, and I'm sitting at a cozy corner table in my favorite bistro, sipping iced tea, chatting with my fiancée, Laura. We've been together for 2 years now, and our relationship feels effortless, full of laughter, trust, and genuine affection. Across from us sits Mike, my FIFA buddy turned brother-in-arms, and his fiancée, Sandra. We're celebrating their engagement with clinking glasses and shared stories. The bistro's soft lights cast a golden glow over the table. Laura's hand finds mine, her eyes warm with love. Mike cracks a joke about my terrible corner kicks in FIFA. Sandra giggles and tugs his arm. Everything feels perfect, as if life finally delivered the harmony I'd once only dreamed of. Then, through the entrance, she appears. Jessica. Her heels clack softly on the hardwood floor. She pauses at the threshold, scanning the room. Her shoulders tense, her eyes widen, pupils darting until they lock on our table. Time seems to slow, and the chatter around us fades to a low hum. I watch her swallow hard, her breath catching in her throat. For years have passed since that fateful cinema lobby. For years of silent revenge, of letting karma run its course. For years of watching Mike and Sandra's love blossom into something real. For years of Jessica's paranoia rising like a storm cloud she couldn't dispel. I stand slowly, Laura at my side, Mike and Sandra mirroring my motion. We don't reach for each other's hands. Words aren't needed. This is the moment I've been waiting for, the final act of a play I set into motion long ago. Jessica's eyes flick from me to Laura, to Mike, to Sandra. Then they settle back on me. Her face drains of color. She blinks, shakes her head as if to clear a fog, then steps forward, tentative. I smile politely. Hello, Jessica. She opens her mouth, then closes it, searching. Mark? She stammers, voice uneven. She looks past me at Laura. Is this? Her gaze lands on Laura's engagement ring. Then it shifts to Sandra's. Her chest rises and falls rapidly. Laura offers a gentle nod. Yes, I'm Laura. Nice to meet you. Her tone is calm, welcoming. I catch Sandra's hand brushing Mike's under the table. Solidarity in an instant. Jessica's eyes burn with confusion, hurt, and something darker, regret. How? How did you? Her voice cracks. Mike steps forward, kindly but firm. Jessica, we're all here together. He gestures toward Sandra, Laura, and me. This is my fiancée, Sandra, and our friend, Mark, and his fiancée, Laura. A silence washes over the table. Jessica's jaw tightens. She glances at Sandra, whose cheeks flush bright pink. Sandra's eyes widen in recognition. She swallowed hard, then nodded, as though understanding only now what she'd done. And me? Jessica whispers. I'm the odd one out. I lean forward, resting my hands on the table. My voice is quiet but carries clearly. You're the tragedy, I say. You orchestrated your own downfall when you betrayed me. You lied to Mike, told him I was just a childhood friend. You erased my place in your life. Then you tried to control everything. I pause to let the words land. Jessica's eyes fill with tears. She looks at Mike. Mike meets her gaze steadily. I care about Sandra. I found someone honest, someone transparent. Not someone who ditches me for lies. Sandra reaches over and squeezes Mike's hand. Her tone is gentle. Jessica, I didn't know about any of this. I was just being a friend. She glances at me and Laura. Neither was I, until recently. Jessica's tears spill over. I'm sorry, she breathes. I never meant. Laura speaks softly. We all make choices, Jessica. Sometimes we can't take them back. I rose from my chair, standing tall. This was meant to be my revenge, for my heartbreak, my humiliation. But tonight, I realize I've gotten more than revenge. I found love, friendship, loyalty. You lost more than you ever gained. I nod toward Sandra and Mike. That's your greatest loss. Jessica's shoulders sag. She stares at the tablecloth as if it reveals every secret she'd tried to hide. She lifts her head, meets my gaze one last time. Thank you for teaching me a lesson I'll never forget. Then she turns and walks away, her heels echoing down the hallway. The bistro's door swings closed behind her, and the murmur of conversation returns as if awakening from a dream. I sink back into my chair. Laura lays her hand on my arm. Mike and Sandra share a relieved smile. We raise our glasses. To new beginnings, I said, lifting my glass. And to the lessons we learned the hard way. We clink glasses, laughter bubbling up. Outside, the night air is cool and fresh, carrying away the ghosts of old betrayals.